to Made Up of Wires, where we're decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Some fun things to show you this morning, and we'll get into some decompiling as well. If you're not familiar with the Symphony of the Night decompilation project, you can go to sotendency.dev and learn more. You can find a link to GitHub, which will bring you to the source code that we've decompiled so far, as well as Discord, where you can learn more and occasionally find me. I'm antisocial though, so I'm not always there. We've been working on NZ1, which is the clock tower. It's not on this graph yet. I do have a change locally, but I haven't submitted a PR for it. So one day we'll get it up there. Give me 1 second to adjust my volume here. There we go. So what to talk about today? Late last week, I was working on some MIPS match stuff. I think I did update the logo for the README. I don't know if I showed that, but it's fun. I like it. So MIPS match is a tool that I wrote for matching binary sections and segments in MIPS binaries, primarily because we have a lot of overlays here in Symphony of the Night, and there's a lot of duplicates, and you want to be able to find those duplicates quickly, and when you start a new overlay, you want to identify any of the duplicates. And so we had a tool called dupes, and we still use the tool called dupes to do fuzzy matching. MIPS match was built to do exact matching and fingerprints and stuff like that. So that's what MIPS match was, just as a little bit of background. And one of the goals I wanted to do pretty early on with not only MIPS match, but just in general, was to be able to quickly identify what the SDK of a PlayStation decompilation project was. And SozuD and Zyynamo, they both have different PlayStation SDK decompilation projects as well that are kind of approaching it different ways. But what I thought would be interesting was if you knew some details about the SDK, you could use something like MIPS match to fingerprint all of the functions and segments in the SDK. It's a little different the way those functions are linked, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you could fingerprint those and then try to match them against a binary, and you should be able to, by looking at what collection of functions is distinct and compiled differently for each SDK, you should be able to find that. Not necessarily the compiler options, but that would give you a pretty good idea of what the compiler was, and at least which SDK it was linked against. And MIPS match is fast, so that's pretty cheap. And so I was looking at the libraries that came with SDK and said, hey, MIPS match, go find the stuff in them, expecting them to be ELF files for whatever reason. They weren't ELF files, then I expected them to be COF files, which is a different binary format for libraries and executables, and they weren't COF files. And so I went to look at what SozuD was doing for splitting them, and it was a SciQ specific format that it looks like Psygnosis probably made in the late 80s, and that it was adopted for the PlayStation when SciQ became the SDK for the PlayStation. So the tools that we have for dealing with those libraries came from the SDK, and they're all DOS programs from the 90s. And as much as I like DOS programs, and I like the 90s, they're not really accessible, and especially on modern architectures like macOS, where 32-bit or 16-bit x86 programs can't run natively in any way. They became a pain to run, and so you can open DOSBox and you can run those, and that's what people do typically. And so scilib is one of them, and that lets you read lib files And lib files are a collection of objects. Basically, they're just appended object files with some header information to tell you what was in there. And then there are object files as well, and you use a different program for that. SciQ dump obj, and that will let you dump an object. And what's a good object file to dump? To get an idea of what this is. Let's look at mallet. And this will give you all the sections, different types of patches, cross-references, code, lots of stuff. So that's there, that exists. But then what do we do? How do we get the code out of that? It's not really that easy. We can't use any of these tools to like dump the assembly directly. It'll just give us information about it. So SozuD, for his SciQ decomp project, wrote a tool for splitting it, and it covers most of the relevant details of these formats. And then there are some wikis that go over the formats as well, but there's not a lot of good documentation for any of them. So on Friday, I buckled down and tried to do as much as I could to document and decompile these binary formats. And most of the way through, there's a few objects that I still can't compile, but we can get to most of them now. And I'm going to publish this soon-ish. And so just like that object dump, we can the lib tool, we can dump all of the library information from one of these libraries. We can also, same tool, nothing different, we can dump the information from the objects as well. And most of this formatting I tried to keep exactly the same. There's some section types that I'm still not formatting correctly, but we'll get to that eventually and get that working. But of all of the SDK library and object files that are in SDK 3.3, 3.5, 3.6, and 3.4, right now there are just 2 basically in every version of the SDK. This libsn, there's 2 versions of libsn in 3.6, and this CDS file. Those are the only 2 that currently have sections in it that I haven't recognized yet. So what does that mean? That means that now there is a library that you can access these lib and obj files, just like you would an elf file or anything like that. And I haven't seen any, maybe something like that exists. I was looking for it and couldn't find it, but I will be publishing those hopefully later this week after I figure out the end of those other ones. And so that's pretty cool. Happy about that. So let's get to decompiling. And we find a good place to start. I think we're building all here. Check my working set. Let's rebase. Hopefully nobody worked on the breakable bridge. Could be. And we'll build. I didn't work on cleaning up the breakable bridge stuff because I got sidetracked with that liblib. I'm calling that those tools liblib because it's a library for lib files. So I do have some outstanding clock tower code to get done. The areas that I thought would be good to focus on if nobody's done them yet are, I think the gears would be kind of fun. There's going to be some rotation stuff in there that may or may not be interesting. And the secret room or the room puzzle would be interesting as well. Glad to see this is all still compiling. All right, so let's look at a find command. I do. I'll look at, oh, that's not the one I want though. We'll just write it again. So I'm going to look at stnz1 non-matchings. I want .s files. If I have to filter out RO data, I'll do that, but I'm not going to worry about it until it's an issue. All right, so we have Karsuman, who obviously is going to be the most complicated. And there's a bunch of stuff within Karsuman. Let's look for... there's background gears. That's actually pretty small. Let's look at the background gears file. Do we have... Trying to see if there is anything obvious for... the secret room. So here's the secret areas. It looks like it's all in E-gears. So let's look at E-gears and see what we got. Project Oblivion, split all of these. I think I'm going to run that same find just in E-gears, and we'll go in some order that I've yet to determine. Oh, we prefix all the entity. I should say, I want to say specific, but there's often helper functions in here, but files that are really about one type of entity or another, we put into one file. It looks like these are all entities, no helpers. I guess let's just start at the bottom and we'll go up. So we have gears that move horizontally, gears that move vertically, gears that are along the wall, let's see what we got. So as always, we're going to go to decomp.me. Did get all of the entity bridge stuff finished, except for that one function. You know the one. There's one with funny sizes on the PSP. Use the Castlevania preset. And away we go. So there are, as always, we're going to clean up some stuff related to things that M2C didn't know about. Animate entity. I always forget. It's either a Sign 16 or a assigned 8. I can never remember. Unsigned 8. I actually think that it's... I think we have an animation frame. So unsigned 8 followed by an entity. This is an entity. I'm going to put this in the context because M2C couldn't figure out what the type was. We'll get a new decomp. Too much rust over the weekend, putting my types in the wrong order. So this is going to be an unsigned 8 array. And I'll have to remember what the correct way to specify that is, because there is a correct way to specify that. This one looks pretty simple. The PSP might throw us for a loop though, as always. Never trust the PSP. I'm gonna get rid of these. Okay, so we have this go-to down here. The go-to probably wasn't ever really there. Most of the time they're not. So what we were doing was setting some registers and then making it so the code for the assignment was shared. And we don't need that. G entities, when we see a pointer to that, that's the first entity of G entities, that's actually player. So we'll replace that with player dot. And we're adding or subtracting here. So we're going to do plus equals. So basically, what this is saying, if this has collided with the player, then move him to the right or to the left, depending on what direction the collision is. And we have some globals here that we'll need to deal with. These are going to be in the entity table, I think. We'll see. But we'll do this other part first. So basically, we're moving this along, and then the same thing down here. It's pretty straightforward. And all of those temporary variables will go away then. Get us most of the way there. So the next thing is to figure out what this animation is what we expect. What's interesting about this, and we could go back there. We have to go back. I don't remember specifically where the horizontal gears are. I'm a little surprised though. So what this is suggesting to me, I think, is that the rotation is animated as opposed to using the PlayStation geometry. So somewhere in the assets for this stage, you'll see the gear in all of its orientations as sprites instead of just a single picture and then rotated. And I wonder why the sprite the sprite animation I think looks nicer, but obviously doing the geometry transformation is it cheaper? I don't know. Maybe they didn't have the cycles to spare because there's a lot going on there. Hey, roaming. Good to have you back. So let's check it out and see if we can find this horizontal gear. And I don't remember which room, if any, it exists in. It's not these. I can bonk on those stairs. Not like that. Well, this is going about as well as you could expect. Oh, those are the horizontal gears. Okay. I'm still... So yeah, you couldn't use geometry transformation for that. You possibly use like palette cycling. I found a YouTube short was gifted to me in my suggestions this morning about Alucard's transformation into the gargoyle. So I'm a little curious why those vertical gears then are as much additional code as they are. Anyway, so those are horizontal gears. So sorry, blanking. We need to figure out two things here. What this global is and what the 7.2F0 global is. Anyway, it was about Alucard turning into the gargoyle and what the probability is, and the there's also the one that moves up and down, right? The one that's kind of like an elevator but also a gear. Hey Dizzy, good to have you. So what am I looking for? Game.h, and I want to open symbols. Anyway, so this guy went through and he claims that, and I have no reason to not believe him, but he claims that he spent 4 hours getting stoned and then keeping track of it, and had some, ridiculous number of samples then, and came up with 1 out of 64 times you get stoned. So I thought it would be interesting to go see if we could figure out how often you get stoned. All right, so this is part of G player. It's the VRAM flag. I feel like that should be seared into my brain. All right, and then the last one is this D88. So these are backwards. Is that going to give me the correct order? No, it doesn't. It looks like player maybe getting taken out as a pointer after the get player collision with. I'm going to try that and see if that makes a difference. And I'm, kind of convinced. based on the way that the M2C decompiled it. Yes, thank you. Thank you, thank you. You don't want to see a la carte? And again, the reason you would do this is because you think that you're smarter than the compiler. And in this case, I mean, it did compile better, so maybe there's some truth to that. So this will work on the PlayStation. It probably will work on the PSP as well. I want to see what this global is. I'm not familiar with it. It's something that is so it's known. It's known to be a position. It's in the context. So I'm going to look here. I'm going to look at include as well. Yeah, it's just something in game.h. Like, hey, everybody, look at this global. Okay. Works for me. So that means, though, it should be available on the PSP as well without having to do too much. So let's grab the PSP version. NZ1. Non-matchings. NZ1. PHP. And this is entity gear. Oh, E-gear. Entity gear. Horizontal. There we go. Okay, so as always, we see that it's not quite right. There's an additional variable that should be there that we don't have. And it's the result of the collision. Let's see what that signature is. Looks like it's just a sign 32. Mask, and that was it. So the only thing that is different then, and this should work fine on the PlayStation, I'm not too concerned about it, is the global for the animation. Yeah, that works there. And we'll go back and confirm that that's the case. So this was horizontal. Yep, that worked fine. So let's do vertical next. And I think I'm going to start with the PSP this time. We'll see if that's a bad idea or not. I should remember to mark these as matched. Not fork, don't fork it. Because that metadata is can be helpful later on. I'm pretty bad at doing that. Look at all these NOPs that made their way in. Going back over here. Where does this fall? I'm a little surprised at all the knobs. For a MIPS function, the second to last instruction will always be, unless it's a trampoline, but I'm talking about regular functions, subroutines, if you're programming assembly, it'll always be JRRA, because jump return to the return address basically tears down the stack and does all the correct things. I shouldn't say that. It doesn't tear down the stack. This is the line that tears down the stack. But then afterwards, often you'll see something that moves value into register V0, or maybe even the stack move. And that's because there's a branch delay slot. That's why this is indented by one very subtle space. And so we need at least one instruction following the JRRA. And usually, or often it's a NOP, but it doesn't have to be. Only one is necessary for this function to be compilable. And with the context that we have here, we will never see more than one. So there's no advantage to putting all those knobs in there. So basically we're going to do the same thing. This time we're, it looks like a lot of this is going to be basically the same. M2C, before I do that, M2C couldn't figure out the type. I'm going to put this all in the context. And get a new one. Right. So we have a register where the compiler doesn't know, I should say M2C doesn't know whether or not all code paths will result in this register being set. And so it does this saved reg 0 thing. We just ignore that. And I leave it commented out until I know for sure that this has happened. This is one of the reasons, though, I don't like necessarily starting with the PSP. There's a lot of masking noise and other things like that that just really isn't necessary. And a lot of that stuff is cut out from the PlayStation. But, I mean, this is pretty clean in general. So we do have an entity extension that we're going to have to figure out, which is a bummer. All of the SP20 stuff is going to go away. That's another thing that you wouldn't see on the PlayStation. So I guess let's go through and try to get rid of variables and figure out types. There's some type stuff that looks wrong. We are missing at least one variable that I think will just be automatic, but we'll see. That looks like some kind of timer here. So this is going to be not minus minus, is usually the pattern. It looks like I'm wrong. It's going to be decremented before, and then I don't know if it's going to be checked against 0 specifically. Let's try the not there. It is signed. So now that it's signed, let's try doing it inline. we need the we need it not to do a sign extension, so I think that is how we'll leave it. The mask here seems unnecessary. What's happening? We have another situation where looks like we're getting a player pointer, so let's grab that. That's probably our missing variable. Temp S1 is calculating a Y offset, so we'll call that offset Y. And I think we should be able to get rid of most of the parens and everything here and make this simpler. I don't know if the ordering is important yet, but we'll see. There's probably types that need to be fixed. And then offset Y. We have one additional sign extension. Let's try making that a sign 32, and that clears that up. So I think that's fine. Collision, these masked constants, we do have types for those, and I can go over what they are if anybody is interested. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going. We're doing the same thing here. This is going to be a signed minus minus, and then a check against 0 with the not, a naughty check. That one. It does look like that temp v1 variable is no longer necessary. Temp a1 is probably not necessary either. Here it looks like it might be an explicit check against 0. But with the pre-decrement. And by explicit check, I mean not an explicit check. Okay. So just truthiness. An additional mask here that's not necessary. So mostly we're facing register issues. We have some loads and masks here that should hopefully go away when this expression is cleaned up. And there's probably some types that are wrong here. So most of these are price signed. And okay, so we have one missing variable. So our collision, that is what ended up being register S0. And what's happening, so the programmers, as they're coming through, they probably know that in every case, you're going to go through the switch, and as an invariant, you know that a step can't be anything but 0, 1, 2, 3. And so collision is always going to be set. It's either going to be set in one of these explicitly. Actually, in case 0, it's not. In case 0, it is, because it falls through. So there's no cases where collision won't be set, but the M2C, as it's coming through, it doesn't know that. And so it does the save register S0. I don't think we need that anymore. Basically, it sees that there's a code path that can be taken where the step is greater than 3, where collision is never set. So what we need to do is figure out where our missing variable is, and we'll go through and mark which registers each of these variables are using. So collision we know already is S0. Offset Y. Should be S1, and it is. And then player, a player, is S2, expected. So we're missing S3. S3 is down here on line 35. It looks like there's a second variable here, and this is just being done in line. So I guess we'll make what, like a pause Y, and we have to figure out which part of this comes first. So I'm going to take this, the rightmost part, because I think these are evaluated right to left, but it looks like I'm wrong. So what I meant is I'm going to take the first part and that looks almost right. We're actually doing this subtraction here as well. And that's, hey, look at that. Not only is it perfect, but it's a check mark, and I don't need to override it. All right, so we have a perfect match on the PSP. Let's go over here, and we'll throw that in the PSP. I didn't do the PSP on the other version of this, because I didn't want to split the globals that are different, but that's okay. Interesting that it shows up at the end. So what we can tell from this is that there's actually additional splits here, and we're gonna have to deal with that. And I'll make some notes about that in a second, but these files are not in the right order. Or the same order, I should say. So, entity gear vertical needs to be in its own file. So let's see if we can tell what other things need to be in their own file. Sideways small. It looks like large. basically we need to be able to, so within the C file, the functions can't be out of order. That doesn't make sense. So we need to order them outside of the C file, and that'll be done through spim horizontal. And so this actually is somewhat nice because we can see that basically all of these are in a different order, and none of them are in the same order. Wall gear and secret area door may be together. So we don't know that because they're adjacent or they're consecutive in the file as well. And so are they together? Are they not? We will have to see. But the rest of them look like they're completely separate. Which is kind of interesting. So we should be able to do entity gear vertical without having to go back to decomp.me. And the only difference for vertical is going to be this one global. And so where are we using that global? Near animate entity. The pointer to it is the first arg, so it's going to be going into A0. So we can go over here, look for animate entity. What is the symbol that's going into A0? It's this one here. And we should be able to just do a replace. Yeah, or paste the whole thing. It's only used in 2 places, so let me do it this way. Never know what the right way to use the Vim copy buffer in command mode is. If you know, chat. Oh, it's not right. So do we get any errors, warnings? Yes. I didn't finish the work. That's why I use a find and replace all. Still not working. Okay. Now, any other errors? We still didn't finish the work. Rat. Ooh, still not working. All right. So let's build one more time. I'm gonna do it. So we're way off. I was hoping that it was going to be the same. So we can't use the PSP directly. We got to go figure out what went terribly, horribly wrong. We go back to decomp.me. Come on. In general, like I said, I usually start with the PlayStation. Is this PlayStation code better than what M2C provided for the PSP? Not necessarily. But there is, yeah, definitely something different going on. So this is either a different function or it is modified in some way. I do see some things that I should have cleaned up earlier, and I didn't. Here, the animate entity call. We're missing Player pointer? Or a VRAM, maybe a VRAM? So we're changing the flag based on, I think this is G-Player VRAM. Let's just do this inline. I'm gonna we're either going to be a 4, we're masking that with C. And then we're going to be a 4 or a 5. And then we're ORing that with 8. That looks like it gets us a little closer, but is it correct? Probably not. I think we're going to need another variable, unfortunately. So let's make a S32. We'll just call it flag. I don't know what that last arg is called. And the OR probably isn't here. The OR is probably the optimizer. So still not quite. We're getting the order mixed up. Maybe it is done in the ARG. Yeah, okay. Interesting. So yeah, that's not being done on the PSP, but that's okay. I'm gonna step away for a second and we'll finish this off. Stay tuned. And while you're waiting, might as well like and subscribe. All right, we're back. Over the weekend, one of the things I wanted to do and then didn't do, but I should have, but I didn't, was to look at Nate's arbitrary code execution and really dig into it and try to find where, if we could see where in the code things go wrong, what bounds checks aren't there when they should be. I changed this to a not. Okay, that's not it. The 0 here is suspicious. Usually when there's a 0 kind of randomly, it does have a meaning. It looks like collision is getting set to 0. Is that right? Var A3. Yeah, I think that's what that is saying. So I don't know why that wouldn't have shown up though in on the PSP. Move that up one. $49. $49 looks like it could be a plus equals, and it looks like we're setting the VRAM flag. Oh no, we're doing the same thing. So again with this difference in how this is calculated. I think this would have been like if you were on the porting team to get this working and decided, okay, we're basically just gonna rewrite the PS1 SDK for the PlayStation, for the PSP. At what point do you decide it's better to muck with the code what is the other value? 8? And then we're doing an OR 8, yeah. At what point is it better to muck with the code rather than implement the change in the SDK? In this case, it looks like they mucked with the code. So not quite right here. Still have a few issues. 45. We're missing. Almost there. Still some register issues. Always register issues. They could have to do with signs. It's possible that this is... I don't want to do that. It's possible that this is a explicit check against 0, but I don't think it is. So we're... yeah, Roaming saying Animal Crossing had the same issue, N64 game running on the GameCube. It's easier to intercept the N64 audio graphics code and translate it as opposed to native GC syscalls. Yeah, I think from a game preservation perspective, it probably makes the most sense. Because you can guarantee, or nearly guarantee, that what you're producing is the game that people remember and that people wanted to play to begin with. So yeah, I think that makes sense. Make sure this still works over here. So yeah, this extra collision setting was not here. I've thought about that in the past too, about like porting to other systems and languages. 25 is wrong. Maybe that's what we're gonna get. What we expect. And people who are doing like near ports of games as opposed to matching decomps. How do you know that what you're doing is the same as what was there? And one way is to write a lot of tests and just make sure that everything that you're doing ends up being the same. And another way is to just keep it all the same and implement the thing underneath. And I think both are reasonable and valid ways to go about it. Which one's simpler and faster, I guess only product managers could possibly know. All right, so now we're stuck with this wrong register. Is it an int returning function even though it shouldn't be? No. I think it's going to be something simpler. And unfortunately, I think let me skim through M2C's PlayStation version. There's probably something that is maybe subtle that I'm missing. It could be like this is supposed to be signed instead of unsigned. Plus there seems fine. Oh, it could be. Where else is block 22? I could be doing a plus. Here it is. Oh my goodness. Nope, that's not it. What I was thinking here is sometimes GCC, because it knows what the cases are and that it was based on step, it'll do some math that you don't expect there. As far A3 unsigned, it is. So just have this one little register. What would we be using? Oh, let's look at, no, I was gonna say, let's look at what, stop highlighting. What the args are for a collision with, but I don't think that's the issue. Starts here on 43. No, 29. 29, we move this into A1. PlayStation shouldn't have any ordering issues. So really it's just register allocation. And this is where stupid tricks like the do while come in. things like that. No effect in this case. So then we go back to A1 down here as well. The debug info isn't showing that this A1 assignment is, I believe, this collision. Then A1 isn't being saved off. No, it's not. It is. Ugh, this is gross. Gross. So this assignment here is happening in the branch delay slot of this condition here. So it looks out of order, but it doesn't indicate why that A1 register is being used. There are attributes that you could set to kind of force a register. Obviously not ideal. Let's make this unsigned 32. This seems odd. Let's not use a different variable, but use collision here. We don't have this code on the PSP. Oh, it's probably this. It's probably this. Let's keep that. We'll keep that flag for now. That was it. Oh, no, it's not. Okay, so I guess that isn't there, and then we're reusing collision for this flag. And that doesn't, okay. Weird, but I'm okay with that. So yeah, it was different. I wasn't expecting it to be. That's bizarre. So let's take this version and we're gonna do the inverse, which is to replace this global with this global. And should we split that or not? I think there's probably going to be data that goes along with this as well. So I'll do the splits another time. I wonder if there was any tells that these should be split differently. Let's look at that as well. If there's no RO data, probably not. But nothing there. And nothing there, yeah. So Splat doesn't know about it or find it. All right, so what is next then in this? We did horizontal, we could do the wall. The large one. Let's do the wall gear, it's small, and we'll finish that out. And I think that'll be it for the day. Getting 3 done. It's pretty good. Starting with the PlayStation. There is entity extensions that will need to be dealt with, so not perfect. I should put all of these inits, the common ones, in my context. I have thought about putting them in stage because they are used basically in every stage. And I think that would be useful. It's kind of hard to know. So this is the wall gear. This one is interactable, which is unlike, I mean, the other ones you can fall on and stand on, and they move you around, but this one you can manipulate. And only you. So typically what this means is that both sides of these branch, or both sides of this branch are going to play this sound effect, or a sound effect, and GCC's just optimized out the call to the play positional, but we're going to undo that. And then we can get rid of that RA0, which was an unknown type. I'm not sure why. So our stride here is 2, so I'm going to assume that this is a sine 16 array. And then same thing here. It's probably worth putting those in the context and getting a new one. That other stuff was not so complicated that I can't redo it. Right, 87. Let's do a little bit more cleanup, and then we'll go see if we can get it. The hitbox are all the self attributes, probably not in the right order. So we'll have to go back and figure that out. I guess I'll make this on sine 16 because M2C wants it to be. These are going to be in... Oh, I guess I don't know. I was going to say they're in PlayStation format, but maybe not. It is masking off parts of the bottom 12. That's a little strange. When I see 12 bits of anything, I think of the PlayStation fixed format. Terminate comment, of course. All right, so we're good until 41. Here I think we're just using self params. It's being the only thing that would throw a monkey in that wrench, or monkey wrench in that monkey works in that wrench. Gears spinning. No, I think that's fine. So calling play positional or play sound effects positional. These are the ones, yeah, that you need to hit. And so if we have hit them, basically we're going to do some math here, and we'll maybe we'll work out this entity extension and see what these fields are. But this is the magic at whatever rotation this is. Play one sound effect or the other sound effect. Need to fix my type. We don't need this one anymore. Self rotate is going to be a and equals. I don't think temp v0 is. We'll get that again from temp rotate. So this is something that PSP would help us with, but I think this will be fine. Interesting that it's based on the rotation and not the number of hits. Basically, when you're reading tutorials about how to do this trick, at least what I recall from it is people say 11 hits, when that doesn't seem to be relevant at all. It just happens to be that maybe 11 is the number from the starting position that's most relevant. Let's see. So we're setting params to this. Oi, this is odd. I'm gonna defer to the PSP for what is going on here. It looks like, so we're multiplying 1 by the number of params, then subtracting that from -1 or 255, depending on how this is interpreted, and then masking it by the params again. That seems like maybe it's either an XOR or just a and 1, like a Boolean. Can we tell what params is here? Yeah, I'm not sure. I think we'll see on the PSP. The PSP will make that easier to interpret. Here we're doing a minus minus, and this is going to be a not minus minus, just directly in here. So we have some sort of timer. Maybe this prevents, this might be the cooldown between when you can hit the timer. And so we're going to do a sine 16 there. We're getting there most of the way. Yeah, funny business here as well. How much of this is gone now? Yeah, I feel like I don't like starting with the PSP. There's a lot of noise, but then at the same time, I ultimately have to go back to the PSP anyway. We got most of these variables gone. So let's do that, and then we can round this out. Get it done. A few of these types might be useful to have in the context. Of course, I moved that to the context here. So clever. Not the best, not looking the best. Let's look at M2C and see what it's got for us. Yeah, so it's okay, so it's doing it and equals FF minus 1 shifted by self-params. And self-params isn't getting set at all. Unless... No. Let's give M2C some help. That's all it is. Bizarre. So I wonder if self-params is getting set on the PlayStation version? And not here? There could be a difference between the two. We'll see. I'm going to get rid of it here, and then we'll figure out if it's necessary or not. R6, good question. R6 asks, was the PSP version rewritten for the PSP architecture, or is it emulating PS1? Neither. They wrote a compatibility layer for the PSP, or for the PlayStation 1. And so that's actually one of the things that's being decompiled as well. So Konami has, and this is my theory, not gospel, but Digital Eclipse was working on the Xbox 360 port of the game. And my guess is, as a consequence of writing that port, they basically wrote a PlayStation 1 SDK wrapper for the Xbox 360 to get the existing PlayStation 1 code working on the Xbox 360. And that port is basically the same game. It doesn't have the slowdown and other things like that. But play style wise, there's not really anything different. Sorry, I'm thinking about this. Yeah, all this is gone. So then I don't know if they were related at all. It could be that the Xbox 360 version was done in complete isolation from the PSP version. We have a assembly dump of the Xbox 360 version, but nobody has been working on it actively that I know of to decompile that. So the PSP version is 99% identical code to the PlayStation 1 version for the game. And so to do that, they had to basically stub out all the PS1 SDK calls and translate them to PSP SDK calls. And that's, effectively what they did. And so, as part of this project, we're going to be trying to get that as well. It's like rotate is red again to do the mask. There's another check down here at case 1. And so there's things like this where there's an additional check wrapping this one that is PSP specific. And this is going to totally break my editor. Have these conditional brackets, but what are you going to do? So it is kind of neat to see what the differences are between the versions of the game, and there definitely are bugs that were fixed and other things like that are legitimate. There's uninitialized variables that would have produced warnings when they wouldn't have when the original was compiled that have been fixed. There's things like this where obviously there was somebody felt it important to do this check before checking hit flags. And no. There's a return somewhere in here. I know it. Oh, this check is here. Weird. There are a few types that are wrong. We masking here. Why? Hit points. This is max. That's 16 max. Odd. Oh, this is a pass-through assignment. I got the unsigned I thought from the PlayStation, but apparently not. Different variables here on 25. So normally the at versus v1 comes from changing the expression from a greater than to greater than equals or vice versa. I hate this. Not having this a round or like a round number seems wrong. I guess what is I don't know offhand what 61 is. 61 hex 97, otherwise it would be 96, so I guess it's an odd number no matter how it's represented. Okay, I guess that's fine. And that was it. Yeah, we have some symbols that are different, that's okay. Let's go make sure that this still works over here. Perfect. Perfect in every way. All right, so we got this as well. Let's figure out the entity extension. I'm gonna try something that I usually fail at, which is to, I'm gonna forward declare the entity extension here. We're gonna call this gear puzzle. And we'll make a I think I need. Okay, so we have an incomplete type, and so what we can do, I think I can get rid of this one. What we can do is take this over here, and this is, instead of flipping back and forth, nope, we might not gonna be able to do this. I thought I would be able to do it. I thought I would be able to pre-declare this, and then said I will. Let's try this one more time. If I do this. I really thought that there was a way for me to forward declare a type def. Okay, all right, so I won't do that. Bummer. I just don't like flipping back and forth. So we have our gear puzzle. Now we're gonna go through and figure out what all these illegal extensions are. So we have something that's 4 bytes in. So we'll pad that. And I think this is a timer. So I'm gonna make it a timer. Let's watch over here, make sure I'm doing the right thing. And like I said, that timer is that the only one? That's the only one. Nothing but that timer. Basically, it's the cooldown between when you can hit it again or not. And then it rotates back to step 1. So this is we'll call it cooldown timer. And you get basically 16 frames where you can't hit it. All right, so let's go get all that in there. So the first thing I'm going to do is add the entity extension. Because this is going to require recompiling everything. So I'm going to get this in. And then while that's going, I'm going to copy this into PSP version. And then we can get this updated version of the code back into the PSP version as well. Make sure that it's just symbols here. I am going to fix the symbols because at least right now they're separated. And what do you know? It's done. Good planning. Good planning. Until we give them better names, the symbols are always different between the PSP and the PlayStation, even though it's the same data. And so until we have the data imported as well, those remain separate. So let's find this wall here. Whether or not the secret door is part of the same file, we don't know yet. That was fine, so PSP, no problem. PSP, typically pickier. GCC doesn't care, it'll compile everything to the same code. Doesn't matter. If you think it's the same code, GCC will confirm your desires and make it the same code. So we got those working again as well. And again, these appear to be split into separate files. So we have these all in one C file now, but because the ordering in this file is different between the two versions of the game, that suggests to me that these are actually going to be a bunch of smaller files, each with just one or two functions in them. All right. Sorry, R611. Yes, it is a recompilation, basically. Recompilation with some compatibility shims is exactly what the difference is. And there's, so we have effectively 4 versions of the game that have been recompiled distinctly. The Saturn version, the PlayStation 1 version is the original, then the Saturn version, which may or may not have the same changes. Some people are working on that. I have not looked at it very deeply, but it has a lot of the same code in it. The Xbox 360 version, and then the PSP version And ever since the PSP version was compiled, all of subsequent versions, so the mobile version and the PS4 version, are just repackages of the PSP version, not recompilations of it. So it's the same exact code that was in the PSP machine code, MIPS code, from the PSP version that gets shipped on the mobile version and the PS4 version. Would it be tied to doors or rooms? You mean the splits for the files? The splits for the files don't make a difference. They all get compiled into the same stage. So there's one stage overlay, and everything in that stage. So when you go through the red doors, that's when the stage overlay changes. And everything after you go through a red door that you see in that stage, for the most part, is compiled into one binary on the disk. I say, with exception, the exception is major bosses are not compiled into that, and on the PlayStation version especially, you'll see a loading delay. I mean, doors, these gears open. Yeah, so looking at the ordering of this file, if we look at that wall gear, so on the left is the PSP, on the right is the PlayStation. If we look at that wall gear function and go to the end of it, immediately after is the secret area door function. And if we look at the wall gear function on the PlayStation, immediately after it is the secret area door. So are those actually being compiled into the same, from the same C source code file, or were they separate? We don't know yet. The way that we will figure out is when we finish the secret area door function, if there's any alignment issues that crop up, then it's likely that they were in separate files. If there's no alignment issues, then we'll never know. And if they work in the same file, great. And if they don't work, then we'll fix it. So we'll certainly know if they were in different files, but we never may know if they were in the same file, if that makes sense. All right, so we have how many of these? I think we have about 3 more. 4 more. And of those 4, the small sideways gear, that I believe is the one that's moving up and down, is the largest and most complicated one, followed by the secret area door. And I'm guessing the secret area door has a bunch of logic that is related back to this wall gear that we just did. Oh, no problem. R6 says, not a coder in any way. I try to be as technical as people in chat want me to be, or as not technical as people in chat want me to be. So ask questions at any level. And unfortunately, while I think Symphony of the Night is one of the greatest games ever made, and I play it frequently, I'm not the foremost expert at the game by any stretch of the imagination, and I rely on many people to help remind me of different things in the game. So whatever I can learn along the way, I'm happy to learn and happy to share. So at the beginning, kind of before we got started here, I was talking about, what do I want to disconnect? LibLib, and I'll try to get this pushed hopefully sometime this week. But LibLib is a new program and library that I'm hoping to publish that allows you to read SciQ, which is the PlayStation SDK, library and object files in a way that you might read ELF or Mach or Cough or whatever object files you want to read out. There, as far as I know, there aren't really a lot of publicly available utilities to do this, and so having a new one that is modern, can read all of the known PlayStation SDK library and object files. I think is kind of a nice thing for the community to have, and I'll be talking more about that later. But that's it. That's all I got. So we've been decompiling Symphony of the Night. Arzik says, yeah, the gear is probably a pain because of all the collision code. So it's moving Alucard. All the gears do, though. And we just looked at the horizontal and vertical gear, which also move Alucard, but in a slightly different way. They're let's actually go back and look. I do want to look at one thing quickly. I think so. I was a little surprised that they weren't using graphics, like PlayStation graphics primitives, to change the horizontal and vertical gear until I saw them again and realized what they were. They are sprites, and so each of the rotation frames is a different sprite. But I think the rotating elevator gear, I think that is rotated using the PlayStation hardware. Let's just confirm that. And so there's going to be some graphics code in there that is possibly challenging. So yeah, this, you can tell from, let me pause it this way. You can tell from how and like where the jagged edges are here, that this is being rotated by the PlayStation GTE hardware, as opposed to it being separate sprites for each frame of the rotation. And for a gear this big, that probably makes sense because you load one image in and then you let the hardware do all the rotation for you. But as a result, you get a bunch of artifacts that you wouldn't necessarily get if it was pure pixel art. Whereas the vertical gears, those are small enough that there's probably only a handful of frames to get from the gear being in one position back to whatever the cyclical position. You don't have to track a gear all the way down, you just have to track it to the next position of the next tooth. So yeah, let's go find that other one. Not here. Oh, there's our wall gear. And the wall gears, oh great, I'm gonna die. I'm so gonna die. Let's yeah, there we go. You saw nothing. So again, the wall gear that we just did, that uses the graphics rotation as well. And you can tell because of how jagged and kind of gross it looks. Let's go find that elevator gear. Oh, come on. Not a speedrunner by any stretch of the imagination. There's our elevator gear. And yeah, it's actually the same sprite as the wall gear. I didn't realize that. But it has that same very jagged look that you get from the PlayStation hardware rotation. So we got that to go over. The rotation logic actually wasn't anything too complicated. So I am a little surprised. Oh, that's probably it. It has to do all the calculations for the surface, and because it's not flat, you have to calculate the whatever the normal position is on the side. So, and you can't stand on the wall gears, so they don't have to do any of that. They don't have to care about the collision of a circle. And I'm guessing that's where the complexity comes in here, but we'll see. Now we saw it. All right. Yeah, and I do wonder with the horizontal and vertical gears if they can even do some additional tricks. I don't think anybody has mapped the sprites yet for this stage. I could be wrong. Sorry, just checking to see if that's... Oh, there is possibly they are mapped. Project Oblivion did a bunch of work on this. One second while I... Too many ports, too many random things. We'll see what we got here. So these are various map tiles. Car 7. Oh, not N01. I want NZ1. Looking at the wrong thing. NZ1. So yeah, there are all of our gears. Not the vertical and horizontal ones, just the static ones. Our big gear. And yeah, they are the full gear. I wonder if this is rotated 90 degrees. Oh, you're not seeing any of this because I have DuckStation in the way. Apologies. So it did look like we have the gears here, and like I said, there's only 3 frames. Amazing. Only 3 frames for the whole thing. Possibly some additional like patches of the edges here. Let's see what else we have for NZ1. And just the stage name in all the languages. When we're decompiling, we use the EU version of the PSP game because it was the first version to have multi-language support. A few more of these. There's the clouds. These are all in black and white. Because the color lookup tables, or the palette for them, is in a separate place. And the program decides what palette is going to be used for the picture. This is the palette available to the game. All right, that's it. Soten.z.dev. Chat, like, subscribe. Any questions? Feel free to ask, and I'll try to address them. Later this week, Nate was on last week and provided a link to his arbitrary code execution tool-assisted run. And so I would like to go through and figure out if we have the code that he's exploiting, and get to that later this week. And that's it. I'll see you all tomorrow. Adios.